Hey there, nation. Welcome to the show where we show you how to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and it's now time for another edition of Age of the Realms. These are our Warhammer Age of Sigmar battle reports. This is battle report number 16. This one is a 1,000 point battle fighting over the Gifts of Heaven scenario. It is between myself with my Mild Hunt, which is my 1,000 point Sylvaneth army, versus my buddy Odeth, the Esoteric Order of the Suns. And he's bringing a Tzeentch Arcanites army. So the Tzeentch Arcanites are the newest army that has come out so far from Games Workshop when it comes to the Age of Sigmar. We've seen armies for Nurgle, we've seen armies for Khorne, we've seen a lot, especially a lot for Khorne actually. And now it's kind of neat because now we're starting to see the rise of Tzeentch within the Age of the Realm, within the Age of Sigmar. So my buddy Odess, my local Chaos Warriors player, he wanted to try out this list. We kind of banged one out together for 1,000 points. Decided to go out and see exactly what it looks like. So now you guys get to see a battle report that actually has some new guys in there. So without any further ado, let's go and talk about our armies for this one. Alright, let's go run down the list for my Wild Hunt. It is my 1,000 point Sylvaneth army on this one. So let's start with the leaders. Over to the left hand side, we got Coadil. He is my Tree Lord Ancient. He's got the Wisdom of the Ancients command trait. He's also packing Rhino's Lementiri, and he's got the Regrowth Deep Wood Lore spell. It's kind of a good combination. I'm kind of excited about using him for this one. I like the whole Wisdom of the Ancients, so that way I can give +1 to my Bravery test for anything within 10 inches of him. He's got Rhino's Lementiri to cast the Regrowth spell to heal himself or heal up my Kurnoth Hunters. So it's a pretty good choice, in my opinion, for my leaders for 1,000 points. For my battle line units, we have two of them. The first one is the Court of Seasons. It is my unit of 20 Dryads Branch Nymph. Once again, I love using Branch Nymphs. They get 2 attacks. Branch Nymphs get 3. They get additional saves if there's 12 or more models in their unit. They also get additional save from tower to cover. -1 to hit against them, +1 for them to hit their opponents. Just a good all-around solid battle line unit. And then my next battle line unit is the Court of Heralds. It is 5 Tree Revenants. And it's also got the Way Pipers. It's got a Standard Bearer as well as Leader Armor the Glaive as well. Just a typical, like, kind of obligatory unit for 100 points in order to round up my battle line units. I'm still not satisfied with these guys. I'm still not sure how to use them pretty well. I think I'm probably using them wrong, but I do like the fact that they get to reroll 1 die per each of the phases for their martial memories ability. So I don't know. We'll see how those guys work out as well. And then finally, the main core of my army, we have 2 units of 3 Kurnoth Hunters apiece. They're called the Troop of Dawn and the Troop of Dusk. Both units have Hunt Masters. Both units have Kurnoth Great Bows in it, and Kurnoth Hunters really need no introduction on that part. They're a fantastic unit. They got 5 wounds apiece. They're also packing 2 attacks. Great Bows causing D3 wounds, 4+ up to hit, 3+ up to wound. They got good close combat attacks. They got the ability to give themselves rerolls for field armor saves. They got stops. All kinds of goodness with these guys. So I'm just really excited to see how these guys work out in this battle report. So yeah, that rounds up my 1,000 point army for this one. Alright, now it's time to talk to my buddy's army, Odeth's army, which is the Esoteric Order of the Thousand Suns. It is a 1,000 point Tzeentch Arcanite army. It's also kind of a new army for him to use, so let's go and talk about the list real fast. His leader in this one is Kovan the Weakest. He is a Tzeentch Sorcerer Lord. He's got the Magical Supremacy command trait, so that way he can dispel spells up to 27 inches, which is a really powerful ability because most guys can only go 18, so that's kind of cool to see that. He's also packing the Crown of Command too, which also allows him to give not only a regular command ability, but also give Aspiring Presence as well. Now, since this guy is usually not a commander, doesn't really come with a command ability, but he's still giving 2 units at a time, what you call Inspiring Presence. That is really, really dangerous. And of course, this guy is bringing his Bolt of Change spell, which is really, really brutal. That spell I'm absolutely terrified of. You give D3 mortal wounds to your opponent for any guy that gets killed. When you cast it, you roll a 4 up, you get a Chaos spawn to kind of pop out of there too, which is kind of crazy. You can see in this photo, he's got a bunch of them right there holding a reserve to call those guys up when the time comes with that spell. For his battle line units, he has 2 of them. He has the Storm Lords, which are 10 Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch with Standard Bearer, Hornblower, Aspiring Champions. These guys are packing halberds and rune shields, as well as Marks of Tzeentch, which kind of makes sense. He's also got the Storm Scions, which are 10 Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch with Standard Bearer, Hornblower, Aspiring Champion, halberds and rune shields, and Marks of Tzeentch as well. Like it before, Chaos Warriors are good, solid battle line units. They got 2 wounds apiece, good armor save, good rolls to hit, good rolls to wound, and they can also use their rune shields to kind of block mortal wounds that come their way. So, kind of interesting to see how they go against those guys. For his units, he has the Changelings, which is the most unit I'm actually interested in fighting up against. He's got 20 Zangors in there with the Twist Bray, Icon Bearers, and Brayhorns. They're also packing 4 mutants in that unit. And that unit's kind of rough because they can shoot during the shooting phase with their Standard Bearers. They can shoot like an energy bolt. They also get bonuses for being near heroes of the Tzeentch Arcanite heroes being nearby to them as well. They They got upgrades for mutants, upgrades for fighting with multiple weapons. These guys are dangerous, and I'm interested to see how I kind of stack up against these guys and see how well they do in close combat because I want to see what I have to face them the next time I do battle with these guys. And then finally, running out his last of his army, he's got the Second Sons, which are 5 Chaos Knights. He's got a Doom Knight, a Standard Bearer, and a Hornblower in that one. He's equipping them with Chaos Glaives and Marks of Tzeentch, and I'm kind of just see, how those guys kind of stack up because, most of the Chaos guys from the 8th edition of Warhammer kind of nerfed a little bit when they came over to the Age of Sigmar, but the Changelings, which are those Zangor and that Sorcerer Lord, I'm trying to interested to see what those guys can do. So yeah, that makes up my opponent's list for this one. All right, before we get to the deployment, we're talking about the Dice of Destiny real fast. In case you guys are unaware of this, Tzeentch Arcanite armies have this Legion ability called Dice of Destiny. What happens is they take 96 and they roll those 96, whatever they end up rolling, that's what they get. So you can see in there he's got like a 3, a 2, 2 1s, 2 4s, another 2, a 6, and a 5. And what happens is that any single time during his phase when you roll a dice, he doesn't like one of the dice that he's rolled, he can replace one of those dice with one of his Dice of Destiny is what he can do and kind of help trade out, which is actually absolutely terrifying. You think about it. Like, imagine like if you're fighting these guys and they have to take a battle shock test for casualties, and he decides he's going to use one of his ones from his Dice of Destiny. Those guys will not break. Or if he wants to make sure that he can get you like maximum for mortal wounds or whatever he wants to use them for, he's got 9 different dice that he can use that he knows exactly what the results are and use those in his battle, and that's kind of rough. I mean, that is absolutely terrifying to go up against. So yeah, that's what my opponent Odeth's Dice of Destiny look like right now. All right, now it's time to talk about deployment. As you can see on this board, we're fighting on a 4x4 table this time. The reason why is because we're only using 1,000 points for this battle, so we're about fighting on a 4x6 on this one. As you can see in this deployment, my opponent decided to deploy on the near side. He rolled off and wanted to take that side. I'm on the far side of the board as well. As you can see, we got a couple of hills in either corner of the battlefield. We got several Sylvaneth forts scattered throughout. And like I said before, the way we do terrain is whoever rolls up for that quadrant gets to choose what kind of terrain goes in there. Since I'm Sylvaneth, I'm putting down Sylvaneth Wildwood, which is the way it's going to be on that part. So that's what we have going on there. So you can see there his forces kind of lined up against me. I have a few of my units on the board as well, but majority of my army, the other half of my army is kind of off board, so that way I can use them to travel on the root realms. That way they can get to wherever they want to go to. Because this is a Gifts of Heaven scenario, we're not really sure where our objectives will land until turn 2 during our hero phases. So it's kind of hard to gauge where our stuff will be at. So that's how we pretty much deployed it for this one. Alright, so here's my deployment. I put all my forces up in the upper left-hand corner of the table, right behind that Sylvaneth force right there, which is the auto-colored one. I have 3 of my units deployed. I have Coadil, my Tree Lord Ancient. He's kind of smack dab right down the middle, and on the other side of him I have the Troop of Dusk, as well as the Troop of Dawn. And that's the only thing I'm deploying at this part. My idea is to like lay down some long-range firepower with their great bows and try to will down his forces as he marches towards me or to engage me in close combat. At the same time, I'm keeping my Court of Seasons as well as my Court of Heralds off to the side. I'm going to try to hold them off, deploying those guys as long as possible until we figure out what meteorites land for the Gifts of Heaven scenario. Basically, what happens is in turn 2 of each of our hero phases, we roll to see exactly where our meteorites land on our half of the table, and it's our objective to hold those and to seize control of our opponents and try to hold on to both of them and win the game is basically the idea for this scenario. So, like I said before, I'm going to keep my guys kind of deployed back just until I figure out where those meteorites are located at, and once I do that, then I'll start deploying the rest of my army. So yeah, that makes a deployment for my army on this one. All right, let's go and talk about Odeth's deployment on his left flank for the Tzeentch Arcanites. As you can see in the very far left-hand corner behind that hill, he's deployed his 5 Chaos Knights, the Second Sons. I think he's going to try to move those guys up to flank me pretty quickly, so I think that's why they're located there. And also in the center of the page, as you can see, we have 20 Zangor. Those are the Changelings, as well as Kavan the Weakness, which is the Snorcher Lord right behind them, which kind of makes sense because those Zangor receive mad bonuses whenever they're next to a Tzeentch Arcanite hero, so that's going to be kind of rough. I'm really scared about that unit. I just want to see what those guys can do in combat. I'm kind of anxious to see, how my army will stack up against that unit because these guys are like the new elements into this army. So yeah, that makes up deployment from my opponent's left-hand flank. And here's the deployment on the right-hand flank for the Tzeentch Arcanites. As you can see, my opponent Odeth deployed both of his units of Chaos Warriors right here on the right-hand side. On the left, those are the Storm Lords. On the right are the Scions of the Storm. Those are his 2 units of Chaos Warriors apiece. Those guys are packing halberds. I'm not too worried about those guys just because I'm used to seeing on the battlefield. I know what they can basically do. I'm more interested to see what Zangor and what that Supreme Sorcerer can do as well, especially that Bolt of Change spell. So I'm not too worried about those Chaos Warriors. However, Chaos Warriors are still no slouch. They got decent armor saves, good combat rolls, still kind of a deadly unit to deal with. I just feel that they're not as powerful as they used to be back in 8th edition Warhammer, but, c'est la vie at that point. Alright, and that takes us to the top of turn number 1 for the Tzeentch Arcanites. I let my opponent go first in the hopes that I can get like a double turn for the next turns that come afterwards. So as you can see in this photo is taken both after movement as well as the command phase as well. As you can see, he's given both of his units inspiring presence to both his Chaos Knights as well as to Zangor as well. And my opponent does not waste any time whatsoever, and he just comes charging up as quickly as he possibly can by basically running up his units. So as you can see, he's got kind of like this straight line going right across the middle of the table. He's got his Chaos Warriors on the right hand flank. He's got his Zangors holding the center next to that center portion of the Sylvaneth Wildwood. His Sorcerers right behind them on the left-hand flank. Of course, you have his second sons as well. Pretty much, I'm assuming what he's going to do is just kind of like he's basically he told me what he's going to do is try to flank me there on the left-hand side with his Zangor as well as his Knights, and then kind of hold the center on the right-hand side with his Chaos Warriors until he figures out where the meteorites land until his second turn. So that makes a movement on his side of the board. In the shooting phase, that's right. Chaos Warriors receive shooting phases now because this Tzeentch Arcanite Sorcerer Lord, he basically gets to use his rune staff that has a range of 18 inches, and as well as his Zangor. His Zangor with their Icon Bearer is actually kind of an interesting rule for those guys. What happens is they roll a d6 for every wizard within 9 inches of their unit, whether they're friend or foe. In this case, he only has one. And for every every wizard that he has, he then gets to roll a six-sided dice and basically target an enemy within 18 inches. So basically, I think it was kind of like they're kind of like tapping into the magical energy of wizards and then be able to shoot them out for the blast within 18 inches, and he basically targeted Coedil on that part. He managed to pull a roll of a 4-up. He managed to put a mortal wound onto Coedil, so that was kind of sad. His Tzeentch Lord was still out of range; he couldn't shoot me. However, his changelings did, and so he put a mortal wound onto Coedil, which is kind of sad. So yeah, shooting phase for Chaos Warriors. Who would have seen that coming? And since there's no charges really or close combat because all of his guys ran out of charging range, we go directly to the top of bottom of turn number 1 for the Sylvaneth. Alright, this is the bottom turn number 1 after movement and command phase for the Sylvaneth. I didn't really do so much movement so much on this one. I primarily just used my command abilities. Let's go ahead and talk about those real quick. First off, I used Hear the Spirit Song, so that way I can reroll armor saves of 1 for all my Sylvaneth units within 10 inches of my general, and so I just basically gave it to my 2 units that are on the field, the Troop of Dawn as well as the Troop of Dusk, just to protect themselves from in case anything else kind of happens as well. I also cast my spell for the regrowth from the Deep Lore roll. Lauren managed to take off that mortal wound that was put on Coedil, so that was actually kind of nice. So that was kind of cool. However, my opponent did try to dispel it because he's within 27 inches. Luckily for me, though, I just beat his roll and he couldn't beat mine, so I got kind of lucky on that part. I also used my ability to sum up another Sylvaneth Wildwood. As you can see there, I kind of put up 3 bases of trees right there between my army as well as the Zangors as well. So if I decide to engage those guys in close combat, I have some additional shenanigans I can pull with those Sylvaneth Wildwoods. And that pretty much does it for this round. I didn't really feel comfortable doing much movement. Like I said before, I kept most of my army in reserves because I don't know where those meteorites are going to land yet until next turn, and that's why I kind of keep my guys in reserve there as well. So that's pretty much makes up my entire round. Shooting phase is also pretty lackluster for me. I just kind of flub my rolls when I open fire. I shot with both Coedil's Dune Tendril Staff as well as a Great Bows for both my Kurnoth Hunters into that Zangor because those guys seemed like the bigger threat to me at the time. And so I opened up with them. Unfortunately, I think I only killed like 3 Zangor total and then put 1 more additional wound onto another one. So I didn't really get to do much in terms of like the amount of damage I was kind of hoping to do. So that part was kind of sad on that part as well. I just rolled like a bunch of 1s and 2s, especially when it came to my damage. I think I rolled like 1, 2, and the rest were all 1s, so it didn't really do much damage whatsoever. So, like I said, I only managed to plink off 5 wounds on those guys, so that part was kind of sad. But since there's no charging phase for me, because I'm not planning on charging into that mess, and since there's no close combat, that pretty much makes up the end of turn number 1 for this round. And in turn 2, the worst thing possibly happens when it comes to our initiative test. I lose initiative, and the Tzeentch Arcanites beat me on that part. So my gamble of trying to go second so that way I can get like a double turn failed on that part. It was horrible. We both rolled off. It was actually kind of funny. He used one of his dice of destiny in order to do it. I rolled like a 5, and I think he rolled a 4, so he replaced his 4 with one of his 6s, and that's how he got the turn. And he took it away from me, and I was like, oh my god. So it was horrible on that part. I rolled for that initiative and did a pretty good job on that. So once again, those dice of destiny, very, very dangerous as far as I'm concerned. So as you can see here in this picture, because it's his turn, the meteorites start falling down from the gifts from heaven, so that way we can start claiming them. As you can see, we have the little crater right there, right behind his main lines, and landed on that side of the board. So now he's pretty much going to hold that position with his troops, I think, because that's one of the places of power that I have to go after now. So that makes up the beginning of the hero phase, actually. This is a photo that's taken after both command phase as well as movement phases, and as you can see in this picture, he just kind of starts setting up his forces as well. For the command phase, he gives inspiring presence to both his Chaos Knights as well as his Zangar once again, so that way those guys have to worry about taking battle shock tests all when it's the end of their round. And so with the movement, as you can see in the photo from the left-hand side, he moves up his Chaos Knights to the full maximum movement within 3 inches of my Kurnoth Hunters because he plans on charging those Knights into my left flank, and that's what's going to happen. There's nothing I can do about that. And as you can see on the right-hand side, he also starts moving his Chaos Warriors between the Sylvaneth Wildwoods and the hill there, and kind of gets them in a position and just kind of holds them there to figure out exactly where the next gift of heaven will basically fall on my side of the board. He didn't run those guys, just kind of kept them on normal movement, so that way he can start moving them around when he needs to when my second hero phase takes place. So yeah, that makes up command as well as hero phase for this one. And here's a close-up of those Chaos Knights. The second sun's getting ready to charge into my Kurnoth Hunters, my Troop of Dawn, which is located on the left-hand side, and that's pretty much to be expected. As you see in this close-up to on the right-hand side, he's got his 2 units of Chaos Warriors, his Scions of the Storm, as well as the Storm Lords, getting set up in position so that way they can get to the next meteorite when it decides to crash for us. So yeah, that makes a movement on this part. In the shooting phase, the Tzeentch Sorcerer Lord actually hit me when it came to actually using his rune staff. However, he failed to wound me on that part, so I got pretty lucky on that part. Managed to save that. However, those Angors, they put another mortal wound onto Coadil as well, which is kind of rough because I didn't realize how dangerous those guys actually can be when it comes to the shooting phase. It's just beyond me that they actually get shooting now, so it's kind of cool actually. So it's kind of nice to see how that kind of works out, and yeah. That's pretty much what happened on this part. So Coadil is now wounded for the shooting phase. So the shooting done, we go directly to the charge phase. And in the charge phase, the second sons have no problem running through that forest and actually impacting my Kurnoth Hunters. He did have to take, my buddy Odette did have to take terrain checks because he's charging through that Sylvaneth Wildwoods. However, his guys passed all of his tests with no problem whatsoever. So now my guys are now engaged in close combat. And speaking of close combat, in the end, you only managed to put 1 wound onto one of my Kurnoth Hunters, and I only managed to put 2 wounds onto his, onto his, the Knights, his Chaos Knights on that part. And the reason why is because I accidentally flubbed my combat rolls on that. Because Kurnoth Hunters use great bows, they rely on these little creatures called Quiverlings to do their close combat for them, and their close combat isn't all that spectacular. You know, they get a lot of attacks, which is nice, but they're still rolling up on 4s and wounding on 4s as well. So I didn't really get much of those wounds on that part. However, at the end of each combat phase, I do get to stomp with my Kurnoth Hunters, and that's where my wounds came from. I inflicted 2 mortal wounds on that unit, and that's where those 2 wounds on that Green Knight come from. So that part was kind of nice. However, no real losses on either side, so we basically just stick it out for the next round. All right, so now we go to bottom of turn number 2 for the Sylvaneth, and during the hero phase, of course, we got to figure out where that comet locates at. Now, the comet actually didn't land right behind that spot that you see there. We only put it there right now because to put the comet right in the middle of the Sylvaneth Wildwoods, we didn't know if you could actually move terrain around like that in order to make it happen. So we just kind of leave it back in that corner to represent the fact that right there, my Sylvaneth Wildwoods, right where Codale is standing, really, right in front of him, actually, is where that comet's supposed to go. So for anybody who sees that comet crater in the background, are like, wait a minute, it's not in the center of that board. Okay, yes, we know that. That's only where we just kind of put it right now because we didn't want to move all the other stuff around and we didn't know how to make that work. So right where the Sylvaneth Wildwood is, and right between the two of them, that's actually where that comet's supposed to be. So actually, I got kind of lucky on that part because now my comet is in my area, and that way I can kind of easily defend on that part. So that's where the comet landed for the Gifts of Heaven. All right, so this is a photo after the hero phase. This is after both the hero phase as well as the movement phase. As you can see there, I just kind of did some shenanigans on that part. I try to cast my Deepwood Lore spell during my command phase in order to heal up my Kurnoth Hunters. However, because of that Mastery of Magic ability, the command trait that Tzeentch Sorcerer Lord has, where you can unbind spells within 27 inches, it just ruined me. I wasn't able to stop. I wasn't able to cast that part. He just rolled too high. So that's kind of like a very powerful magic trait in my command trait, in my ability, in my opinion, because I guess it makes kind of sense. Sneak is all about magic. Anyways, I did cast up another Sylvaneth Wildwood there on the right-hand side in the center of the board, right next to the pre-existing Sylvaneth Wildwood. I only put up 2 force on that part to kind of create this wall of Sylvaneth force that my opponent has to go through, and if he wants to engage closer to me in order to get into my or to get to my gift from the heaven in that part as well. Also, in the movement phase, I decided to deploy both my units as well. As you can see in the center of the board, on that stump there in the middle, I deployed my Court of Seasons, which is my huge 20 Dryads right behind it. I also managed to put my Court of Heralds in that log right there in the back. That's another Sylvaneth Wildwood. I got all 5 of those guys located there as well. So that was both hero as well as move phase for my turn. Here's a close-up of my quarter seasons, the other side of that Sylvaneth Wildwood. My plan is to have my quarter seasons charge through that Sylvaneth Wildwood and into that right-hand flank of the Zangors, as well as the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, as located right behind them as well. So that way I can get to those guys in close combat, hopefully be able to wipe those guys out, and then claim that second piece of the Gift of Heaven, and try to secure the victory for me on this part. So that's the close-up on this one. Alright, in the shooting phase, I open up with both my Troop of Dawn as well as my Troop of Dusk. I also open up with Coadel into that Zangors as well. I managed to kill like another handful of Zangor at the same time. I think I killed like 3 or 4 of those guys and put a floating one on another one. So because of that, that unit is now slowly shrinking from long range fire. I just want to soften up a little bit before I charge my quarter seasons in there. My scheme here is actually have my quarter seasons charge through the Sylvaneth Wildwoods into the flank of that unit of Zangors, as well as that Chaos Sorcerer Lord, and try to take those guys out. And then at the same time, have my Kurnoth Hunters start making their way through the Sylvaneth Wildwoods and try to help secure that second objective, so that way I can win the battle on this part. So that's pretty much the plan on this one, and that's pretty much how I kind of schemed it out on that part. In the charge phase, it was not even very difficult for me to charge my Dryads through that Sylvaneth Wildwood. I think I rolled like a 7, I think is what I ended up having to roll on that one, so my 2d6. So as you can see in this picture, my Sylvaneth just swarmed right through that Sylvaneth Wildwood into that right-hand flank there of the Zangor unit. So basically, next round during the combat phase, I plan on fighting these guys out. I'm pretty much liking my odds. It's almost 2-1 with in terms of my Dryads outnumbering the Zangor. But at the same time, though, each of those Zangors do carry 2 wounds, so we'll just basically get to see how it kind of works out. Plus, those guys also have Aspiring Presence, so they worry about doing a Battle Shock test either. So we'll see what happens on that part. So that makes it the charge phase on this one, and with charge over, we go directly to the combat phase. Alright, so this photo is taken after the combat phase and as well as after the battle shock phase. The combat between my Troop of Dawn as well as these Second Sons was actually kind of brutal in that part. The Second Sons managed to kill one of my Kurnoth Hunters, which is pretty sad, but at the same time I managed to kill 2 of the Chaos Knights in return and put 2 more wounds onto the third one as well. So we got kind of lucky on that part. Because the Chaos Knights have Inspiring Presence, they don't worry about taking battle shock tests. And luckily for me, I passed mine, so there's no problem in that part. So those 2 guys are still kind of locked in close combat as far as this round is concerned. Close combat on this side of the board was actually pretty good. They only managed to kill a couple of my guys. I think 2 or 3 of my Dryads ended up dying in that entire combat. And the reason why is because they get the +1 save because there's so many of them in the unit. They get that impenetrable thicket ability, so that was one of them. So that drops their save from 5 to 4. Plus they're inside the Sylvaneth Wildwoods as well, so they also get additional save on top of that as well. So they have 3 up saves. They also receive -1 to hit because of their Rapturing Song, so my opponent gets -1 to hit on that part as well. So I got a lot of buffs helping out my Sylvaneth, my Dryads on this part, which is really helpful as far as battle was concerned. Plus I get a bonus to hit on that part as well. I think I killed like 3 or 4 of the Zangor in the process of doing the combat, and they only killed 2 of my guys as well. The Zangor, of course, didn't take any Battle Shock tests because of Inspiring Presence. And I passed my Battle Shock test with my Dryads, so those 2 units are still kind of engaged and locked in close combat as well. I also managed to put a floating wound onto one of the to that Chaos Sorcerer Lord, Kavan the Weakest as well, so that part was kind of nice. And so with close combat done, we go to turn 3 and we roll for initiative on that one. Alright, and this is where my fortune starts to change. For turn 3, both roll for initiative, and I won the initiative on this part, so now I get to go on this. And once again, I apologize again for the blurriness of this picture. At the time, I thought it looked pretty clear, but now I can see it looks kind of blurry. This picture is taken both after the command phase as well as the movement phase as well, so you can see in this picture, I didn't really sew up another Sylvaneth Wildwood at all. I did try to cast Mystic Bolt against my opponent, but unfortunately for me, though, my opponent's Kavan the Weakness, that guy has his Unbinding ability to go 27 inches, so wasn't able to cast that spell. His roll was just too high, so unable to stop that part on that part. During the movement phase, you can see in this picture, as you can see in the kind of like in the middle there, I move up my Troop of Dusk into the Sylvaneth Force to kind of intercept those 2 units of 10 Chaos Warriors marching towards my left hand flank on that part. At the same time, I move up my Herald, a Court of Heralds, my 5 Tree Revenants. They kind of move up to the back side of that Sylvaneth Wildwood. My plan is to have those guys charge directly into Kavan the Weakest and try to engage that guy in close combat and try to take him out as well. So that pretty much makes up the command as well as the movement phase for this one. So here's a close-up on the left-hand side of the board because the other side was so blurry. I apologize for that one. As you can see in this picture, I've given my command ability for Heed the Spirit Song, giving up the ability to reroll armor save rolls of 1 for my Kurnoth Hunters, which are in 10 inches of my general. At the same time, as you can see in this photo, I've also moved to Coadil to kind of face those Chaos Knights because my plan is to have him charge into the flank of those Second Sons. That way we just can curb stop those guys, get them destroyed, and then move on to the next engagement. On the right-hand side there, I got my Troop of Dawn, Dusk moving into the midst of that Sylvaneth Forest area that I kind of summoned up, so that way they can start taking pot shots at those Chaos Warriors and engage those guys in close combat, stop them from supporting the Zangor that my Dryads are slowly knocking down to size. And here's a close of my Court of Heralds, moving as quickly as they can from that Sylvaneth Wildwood, so that way they can charge into that Chaos Sorcerer. I'll have to roll like a 7 for my for my 5 Tree Revenants to be able to make that charge, but I'm feeling pretty confident about that part. If I engage that Sorcerer Lord in close combat with Tree Revenants, I might be able to take that guy out and then be done with that guy, not have to worry about him anymore, and then just concentrate what's ever left over of his forces, and then try to secure that second objective by the end of turn number 3. So that's pretty much what's going on this side. In my shooting phase, it was absolutely abhorrent with how the shooting phase went on that part. I had both my troops of Dawn and Dusk open up onto those units of the Scions of the Storm, as well as the Stormlords as well. I only managed, I think, to kill like 2 of the Chaos Warriors. I think is all I managed to killing in the end. I just flubbed my rolls on that part, just simple as that. Rolled a lot of 1s and 2s. Also, when it came to doing damage, I also rolled a lot of 1s and 2s as well because Colonel Greatbows usually cause D3 damage, but I was just not rolling on that part. So I think I killed like 2 Chaos Warriors totally from those two units as a whole. So that part was kind of sad as well. So those units are still kind of big, still kind of a threat, and I'm gonna deal with those guys pretty soon. In the charge phase, I actually got kind of lucky on my long bomb charge. I rolled like a 9 for my Court of Heralds in order to get in and kind of surround that Chaos Sorcerer Lord Kavan the weakest, so I got lucky on that part. So now my 5 Tree Revenants are engaging that guy in close combat. Hopefully they'll be able to take him out by the end of this close combat round. At the same time, Kodo had to roll like I think like I forgot how much he had to roll. He didn't have to roll anything actually. He was just right next to those Chaos Knights, so he successfully charged into the flank of those Chaos Knights to lend some support to my Kurnoth Hunters from the Troop of Dawn. So yeah, so now that the charge phase is over, we go directly to the close combat phase. Alright, so here's a photo of the combat between my Kurnoth Hunters and the Chaos Knights after both the combat phase as well as the Battle Shock phase. There wasn't really any Battle Shock phase necessary to be had in this part because between Coadil as well as my 2 Kurnoth Hunters, we just managed to curb stomp those Chaos Knights and kill them to the very last man, so we got pretty lucky on that part. My opponent just flubbed his rolls on that part. He tried to use a lot of his dice in order to help him, his dice of destiny in order to help out with the close combat hits to hit and to wound as well. But unfortunately for him, I just was making my saves like a boss, and so he was unable to do anything really and managed to kill those guys off pretty quickly on that part. So combat's pretty much resolved on this side. And close combat on this side of the board between on this side of the board, it was pretty also kind of lackluster as well. I managed to kill another handful of those Zangors as well. In fact, I think there's only 6 of those guys left at the original 20 that my opponent started with after all these combat phases and shooting and everything else. So at the same time, though, he managed to kill 4 of my Dryads at the same time. I failed my Battle Shock test for those guys, so 2 more actually ran away from combat, so that was kind of sad. However, when it came to his Sorcerer Lord, when I was trying to roll to kind of wound him, I managed to put 1 wound on that guy, but he used a lot of his Destiny dice in order to save himself from the attacks that my Tree Heralds were trying to do against him to keep that guy around, so that part was kind of frustrating. But you know what? That's their ability for their army. They get those dice, and now the only thing that my opponent has left now is a handful of 1s, and I think a couple of 2s for his Destiny dice as well, which the only thing that can really help him out at this point are for Battle Shock tests. So yeah, that pretty much makes up combat on this side. And so with that done, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the Tzeentch Arcanites. Alright, so this is the bottom of turn number 3 for the Tzeentch Arcanites, and during the hero phase, basically the worst thing happened that I could possibly imagine. My opponent takes Kavan the weakest, and he gets off that spell, Bolt of Change, and he managed to kill 3 of my Court of Heralds, 3 of my Tree Revenants in the process. Now, when he did that and he killed 3 of them, he took 3 6-sided dice. Yeah, to roll him on a 4-up, he gets a Chaos Spawn for every single casualty that he inflicts. He managed to get 2 Chaos Spawns. Now I have to deal with these 2 monsters that I wasn't really planning on dealing with in this close combat. And now that was like the worst possible thing that could happen in this phase. I was like, oh my god. It's at this time that I've learned to fear that Bolt of Change spell. You know, I was wondering why he didn't pick any of the other Tzeentch Lord spells at first. I'm like, don't you want to use any of the spells from the other from the rulebook? My buddy was like, no, I just want to use this spell. I didn't understand why until I saw it, and now I understand why. That guy can start spamming up Chaos Spawn like it's nobody's business, and that was pretty brutal. And to make it worse, if he actually rolled a double at that, he also got to cast another spell as well if he rolled a double. Luckily for me, though, he didn't. But I was unable to unbind that spell. That spell went off. 2 Chaos Spawn are now on the table. And now I got a lot more guys to deal with now. So, man, I got 99 problems, bro. I got 99 problems. Alright, so here's a wide shot of the movement phase. Pretty much as you can see in this photo, I'm going to do some close-ups on this part, but he has 2 units of 10 Chaos Warriors. He just ran those guys. Decided to throw caution to the wind. Ran them through those Sylvaneth Wildwoods right there in the center, so that way he can get into position to charge when it comes to his next turn and try to save up his guys as quickly as possible. Because if I manage to kill all of his Chaos Spawn, his Zangor, and his Sorcerer Lord by my next turn, I'll basically win the game because then I control both of those objectives. And so that's pretty much he's just kind of go for broken at this point, try to have them get across the field as quickly as possible to kind of hold out as long as he can. So as you can see, we'll go into zoom in on that part. But yeah, he takes some losses. I think he loses like I think four. Yeah, he loses four Chaos Warriors, two from each unit, for dangerous terrain tests from running through those Sylvaneth Wildwoods. So here's a close-up of his two units of Chaos Warriors, the Scions of the Storm, as well as the Storm Lords charging, running across my Sylvaneth Wildwoods, trying to get to me. As you can see, both units have suffered two casualties as a consequence of losing those guys when it came down to dangerous terrain tests. So luckily for me, though, because he ran that turn, he won't be able to charge me during the charge phase. So if I can just wipe out his guys there within the end of my turn, or within the end of my next turn, end of the combat phase, or my next turn, I might be able to pull this one off in terms of victory by holding both the objectives. But if I can't, I'll have to go until the end of the game in order to fight those Chaos Warrior units. So that part's kind of rough. All right. Unfortunately, I forgot to take a picture of the charge phase, but the only thing you need to really know is that the two Chaos Spawn charged into my Dryads, is all I really did for that part. So this is the photo that's taking place after the combat phase, as well as after Battle Shock phases. In the end, I managed to butcher the remainder of those Zangors as well, kill those guys to the last man, so those Zangor unit now is DRT. So those guys are pretty brutal, man. Those guys are pretty tough. The number of attacks those guys could put out with their three Savage Blades, three attacks with their Savage Blades, as well as their Beak attack, pretty rough stuff on that part. And unfortunately for me, though, in order to do that, I had to direct all my Dryad's attacks against that unit and managed to get that off pretty well. I got pretty lucky as well. Though, luckily for me, my opponent did roll a lot of dice for his Chaos Spawns to attack, but he just kind of flubbed his rolls in terms of wounding, so I got off really, really lucky on that part, and only a couple of my Dryads got killed on that part, so that was kind of nice. However, the combat between my two Tree Heralds, as well as that Chaos Sorcerer Lord, went as well as you could expect. Those Tree Heralds got just curb stomped on that part, so those guys got killed. So I was pretty sad about that. But if I can get lucky in the next turn, in turn 4, and get the initiative, if I can get the initiative, I could try to kill the remainder of these guys, either through close combat or through shooting. Kill these two Chaos Spawn and also kill that Sorcerer Lord as well. If I can do that, then I might be able to pull off the win in the next turn for turn number 4, because then I'll control both objectives. But if not, though, it's gonna be kind of rough on that part. So anyways, that makes up end of combat as well as end of Bioshock phase on this one. So on turn 4, you both rolled for the initiative, and luckily for me, I won the initiative on this one. I got off really lucky as far as I'm concerned on this battle round, because if I didn't get that, and my opponent had gotten Deathly to charge his Chaos Wars, and I would have to, of course, be bogged down and have to fight on this part. But luckily for me, though, I won the initiative roll on this one. So this photo is taking place after both the command phase as well as the move phases as well. Unfortunately for me, for command, I was unable really to use any of my magic spells because, once again, that Sorcerer man is just a boss at dispelling enemy spells, so unbinding enemy spells, so I wasn't able to cast any spells on that part. So all I can really do is move up my troops. As you can see in this photo, I move up Codale closer. Same thing with my Troop of Dawn as well. I move him closer up as well. Same thing with the Troop of Dusk. I kind of bring him a little bit closer. My plan here is to have my Kurnoth Hunters open up on those Chaos Spawn, hopefully be able to kill those guys, and then have Coadil or somebody, shoot that Chaos Sorcerer Lord and try to get him out as well. If I can get rid of those 3 units, then I'll basically secure the victory on this part.
This is my boomstick!
And it came down to the shooting phase, and that's exactly what happened in this photo. As you can see, I don't know what happened, but my Kurnoth Hunters, for whatever reason, they were just doing kind of lackluster the entire game. However, this time, these guys kind of did the whole slow motion, intense, cue in some Michael-based slow-mo type action, and they opened up and they actually shot these guys and actually did it. It was absolutely fantastic on that part. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about what happened. First happened is my 2 Kurnoth Hunters from the Troop of Dawn, they take aim at the green Chaos Spawn, they open fire, they made their shots, all their shots kind of basically made it. When I rolled my D3 for wounds, we managed to put 7 wounds on that Chaos Spawn and killed that guy. So that guy was kind of DRT on that part. I got really, really lucky on that, and that was absolutely amazing that actually worked out. So those guys are dead. So that Chaos Spawn is gone. Then I have my Troop of Dawn, my Troop of Dusk, my 3 other Kurnoth Hunters in the forest there. They open up with their Kurnoth Great Bows on the flesh-colored Chaos Spawn as well. Managed to put 6 wounds exactly on that guy, so we can actually kill that guy. And then finally, the very last kill, the very last clutch kill was done by Coadil. Coadil takes aim with the Doom Tendril Staff, manages to land his shot, and puts 6 wounds onto Kuvon, the weakest, and managed to kill that last Chaos Sorcerer on that part. And that was freaking amazing. These guys made their long-range shots, managed to take those guys out. Nobody's within 6 inches of that second fortification except for my guys. We've achieved that objective, and that's the point, is what it brings us the victory on this one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much rounds it up on this one. As you can see here is the end shot for the entire battle. I have control of basically both of those objectives. I have both the control of my gift of heaven as well as my opponent gift of heaven. I have no enemy troops within 6 inches of those two objectives. I've secured those, and that pretty much guarantees me the victory on this one. It was a very intense game. I'm not used to playing with these kind of scenario rules. Actually, the very first scenario rules that I actually played in Age of Sigmar, so it's the first time using it, and it's kind of different. Most of the time I fought just regular fighting, just regular battles, or basically the objective was to wipe out the other guy or try to table him. But these objective games are actually kind of fun. They're kind of fun to do because you got to do some different thinking and some strategizing in order to secure the objectives and to like win the battle overall in terms of victory points. So that part was actually kind of neat on that part. Kind of like these scenario games that end up being pretty cool for me. So with that one, this game is now officially over. We're heading straight to the after action report for this one.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
All right, people, now it's time for the after action report. This is the part of the battle report where we talk about what went well, what went poorly, what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the after action report for Age of the Realms battle report number 16, my 1,000 point battle of Gift of Heaven from the Heavens scenario. It was fought between myself with my Wild Hunt army and my Sylvaneth versus Death of the Esoteric Order of the Thousand Suns with the Tzeentch Arcanite armies. Let's go and talk about the losses real fast. For my losses, I only lost one unit, which is the Court of Heralds, which kind of figures because Tree Revenants aren't actually all that great in my opinion on using them with close combat. Maybe I'm using them wrong. If I am using them wrong, or if you guys have any suggestions how to use those Tree Heralds, Tree Revenants, please feel free to put down in the comments because I'm out of a loss of what to do with these guys. I only take a unit of them in order to kind of fulfill my battle line requirements, and I don't really know how to use these guys out too well. So if you guys have any input, feel free to add it. For Death, his losses, he basically lost three things. He lost Kavan the Weakest, which is his general. He also lost his unit of Zangar with the Changelings, as well as his Second Sons, which are his Chaos Knights on that part. So some of the thoughts we had about this. First of all, playing scenarios is actually kind of interesting. This is actually the very first scenario I've ever played with Age of Sigmar. Most of the time I've only played battles, and it's kind of nice, kind of a nice change of pace actually. I find that the battles are more focused because you have to be a little bit more objective-minded. You have to be a little bit more focused on what you're trying to do and try to seize objectives in order to win as well. And because they're more focused and because you're trying to get these objectives, they feel like they're more intense in my opinion. So I've been hearing lots of people like Vince Ventrilla, as well as Hooves of Doom, as well as Doom and Darkness, talking about Age of Sigmar, like how using the scenarios is the way to do with this game, and I'm starting to agree with them. It's actually kind of a neat experience, and I like kind of playing these ones. I'm looking for my next scenario, playing my next scenario pretty soon. Also, fighting at 1,000 points is also very different as well. I usually fought most of my battles at 2,000 points with Age of Sigmar, and before that, which is bring whatever you wanted, which was around 2,000 points to begin with. It brings with it a new set of challenges because you can't take as much stuff as you want to, but at the same time, because you don't have as many points and you don't have as many armies and miniatures, there's a different level of intensity involved as well, which is actually kind of cool in that part. Plus, fighting at 1,000 points is not as exhausting at 2,000 points. When you get to 2,000 points and higher, the games tend to get a little long. That is true. You can do about 2.5 hours, maybe 3, maybe 4 hours, depending on what the situation is as well. And remembering all the rules, all the abilities, all the buffs, all the decreases. It is kind of exhausting after a while. And after I got done playing this battle, I wasn't as mentally exhausted as I usually am when I'm playing 2,000 points. So that's also kind of a nice part as well. Now then, let's talk about my opponent's army. Tzeentch Arcanites are extremely dangerous and they're extremely deadly in my opinion. They got good strength, good combat, they got powerful magic, and they also have awesome abilities as well. Now granted, this was my very first fighting against them. It was the very first time that my buddy Death used this kind of army before as well, so there's probably a learning curve involved in there for both of us. But overall, my impression of these guys are they're pretty deadly. I'm pretty impressed with this new army that's coming out and some of the things they can do as well. Some of the things that are making them so dangerous, like Zangar, for example, they're no joke. Their ability to shoot as well. I can see how that ability can get more powerful with more wizards you have on the battlefield as well. And things like the new magic, we don't know what the new lore looks like yet. We're just using stuff that we're finding off the internet to play these guys. Same thing with new command traits, as well as that Dice of Destiny ability. Those are very, very powerful, and I'm interested to see how the game develops as a result for those things. Because those Dice of Destiny, man, my opponent was using those, and it was really throwing off my game. It was something I couldn't predict or try to stop against either, so that was kind of a unique way of doing things as well. I'm also to see what kind of new units are coming out, and how they kind of play into with artifacts and other new aspects of the game as well. Be kind of interested to see how those new units that are coming out, how they interact with the army, how they can do things as well, and it'd be kind of interesting to see what it's like to go up against those guys. Once again, this was a great match as always, a great game, great fun with my friend as always. Odeth is an awesome player, and to be honest with you guys, I am actually afraid for the rematch. I think the only reason why I won this battle report, to be honest with you, is because this is the first time that Odeth is using these new Tzeentch Arcanite rules. I think if he gets more games in, he gets more practice with these guys, it's going to be very, very deadly in my gaming group, and he just might curb stomp me the next time we go to battle together. Once again, as always, feel free to check out my Instagram account as well as my Google account, Google Plus account as well. I got the links below in my comment sections. So that way, I'm in my description. So that way, you guys can access them as well. You can also access those from my banner page for my channel. You can go there to find all the latest updates on my channel, projects I'm working on, things I'm painting, terrain I'm building as well. And you can find all that information there as well. As always, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Your guys' input is really helping me. It's making these battle reports even better. And it's just kind of fun going with the back and forth. So that'll pretty much do it for this one. This is the end of Age of the Realms battle report number 16. As always, this alternates every Sunday between this as well as the 9th saga for my 9th Age battle reports as well. And you guys keep on tuning in until Thursday when we go on with our next one for Warhammer the Golden Age. So I'll see you guys then. You guys stay classy.